I clutched the crumpled divorce papers in my hand, my knuckles white from the force of my grip. Rain hammered against the plastic canopy of the old station. A dull, rattling drumbeat that sounded exactly like the past 3 years of my utterly idiotic marriage. 3 days ago, I'd cut short my inspection trip to a remote mining site, hoping to surprise Suyen, but when I pushed open our bedroom door, I found her tangled up with Han Wei. Han Wei, the man I'd pulled back from the brink of bankruptcy. The man I'd treated like a brother was using gold bars I'd earned to make Suyen giggle like a schoolgirl. When I confronted them, Suyen showed not a shred of guilt, only disgust and icy contempt. Chu Tianjiao, you're nothing but a penniless nobody, she said, looking down her nose at me. If it weren't for your medical skills and your trading instincts, do you think I'd have married you? Han Wei can give me the connections of a great provincial family. What can you give me? Do the smart thing, walk away with nothing. Get out of the provincial capital, and rot in that godforsaken border town in the northwest, to preserve the last shred of my dignity, and to sever all ties with those 2 disgusting people. I signed the papers. I took only a single box of my own old belongings. And with their powerful allies pulling strings, I was exiled to this remote, backward little town in the northwest. Tianjiao. Don't stand in the rain. A gentle voice broke through my memories. A black umbrella appeared over my head. The speaker was Lin Kingsweath, famous president of Chiching Group, a name known across the province. Behind her stood 7 other stunning women. Yi Qingqing, the heiress of a legendary medical family. Shen Meishu, from one of the top aristocratic clans. A pop diva, a renowned innkeeper, and others. In the provincial capital and indeed, across the country they were goddesses that countless men could only dream of. Yet here they were, dressed in simple clothes, suitcases in hand, standing beside me, a discarded failure with nothing but tenderness and unwavering resolve in their eyes. Why? Why did you all come? I asked, my voice hoarse. For the past 3 years, while hiding my true identity, I'd quietly used my resources and skills to help them more than once. But to me, it had always been casual, almost incidental. I never imagined that when I was betrayed by Suyen, crushed by the powerful, stripped of everything, and exiled to this backwater, the ones who would stand up for me were not the wife I'd fought to protect, but these women. Lin Qingshua's eyes reddened. She gripped my hand tightly, her voice soft yet resolute. Suyen is a fool, and Han Wei is a snake. They're the ones who are blind. Wherever you go, we go. Chu Tianjiao, remember this, you are never alone. Yi Qingqing stepped forward and handed me a warm towel. Tianjiao, I'll heal your poison and your wounds, and everything you've lost will help you take it all back. 8 breathtaking beauties stood quietly around me, their eyes free of any hint of disdain, only deep affection and devotion. And in that moment, a cold, mechanical voice exploded in my mind. Ding! Detected that the host has suffered ultimate betrayal while simultaneously receiving the true, deathless love of 8 top-tier goddesses. Invincible Emperor martial arts conversion system has been activated. Detected Lin Qingshua's affection for the host at 95. Yi Qingqing's at 92. System is converting the goddess's love and loyalty into the host's martial cultivation and imperial destiny. Congratulations, host. First conversion reward. Martial cultivation directly breaks through to the Grandmaster realm. Obtained Supreme Martial Art 9 Dragon Emperor Art. Obtained God-level combat experience. Boom. In an instant, a torrent of heat surged from my dantian and burst through every meridian in my body. The weariness and grief that had weighed me down vanished, replaced by a power that felt capable of shattering heaven and earth. I could even hear my own blood roaring like a great river, and every raindrop within 100 meters fell in perfect, crystal clear detail before my eyes. Grandmaster Realm. In this age of fading martial arts and rising tycoons, a single Grandmaster was enough to sweep aside any great family. I lifted my head and looked at the 8 women who had given me their hearts. The despair and resentment in my chest evaporated, replaced by a cold, sovereign resolve. Suyen, Han Wei, you thought exiling me to this frontier ghost town would leave me to die like a stray dog. You have no idea what kind of ace card the man you threw away actually holds. Tianjiao, what's wrong? Lin Qingshu sensed a shift in my presence and looked at me in surprise. I took her hand, drew her close, and swept my gaze over the 8 beauties. A cold smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Nothing. I just realized something. Since they want me to wither away in this dead city, then I'll build an invincible empire right here. One they can only gaze up at in awe. The moment the words left my mouth, harsh brakes screeched outside the station. 3 black SUVs stopped at the entrance. A dozen thugs with iron bars and machetes swaggered out, led by Zhang Bao Hanwei's personal lackey. Zhang Bao lit a cigarette, sneered at me, then let his greedy, venomous eyes roam over the 8 women beside me. Heh, look at you, you piece of trash. Enjoying life, are you? Kicked out by President Su and still managing to drag 8 babes out to this wilderness for some fun. Young Master Han said you might not die cleanly enough, so he sent me to deliver a gift and to bring these ladies back for the boys to have a taste of. The 8 women's faces paled, and they stepped in front of me, but I reached out and gently pulled them behind me. I walked forward, staring coldly at Zhang Bao and his men. Hanwei sent you. My voice was eerily calm. No shit. Chu Tianjiao. Kneel down. Kowtow 3 times. Hand over your women, and I'll let you keep your corpse intact. Zhang Bao brandished his iron bar with a swagger. I let out a cold laugh. Since you've come to me looking for death, use your blood as the opening act of my return to glory. Zhang Bao took my silence for fear. A cruel grin spread across his face, and he swung the iron bar straight at my skull. Wind howled, rain lashed, and the bar cut through the air with a vicious whistle. Lin Qingxue and the others cried out in alarm. I didn't dodge. I simply raised my right hand. You mangy dog dared to lay a hand on my women. My voice was soft, yet it boomed like thunder through the rainy night. In the next instant, my fingers closed precisely around the descending iron bar. Zhang Bao's full-powered swing enough to shatter brick stopped dead in my grip. Not even stirring the edge of my coat, Zhang Bao's smirk froze. His eyes nearly bulged out of his skull. He heaved and strained to pull the bar back, but it might as well have been welded into a steel vise no matter how red his face turned. It didn't budge an inch. You're just a weakling. How can you? Sweat beaded on Zhang Bao's forehead as panic consumed him. Weakling, I sneered, and tightened my fingers. Creak. A shrill metallic screech rang out. The solid iron bar twisted and bent in my palm like soft clay. Before Zhang Bao could react, I slapped him across the face. Crack. The sharp sound of flesh meeting flesh was followed by a shriek. Zhang Bao flew like a broken kite for more than 10 meters, crashing into the hood of an SUV and denting it deeply. He vomited blood and teeth, then crumpled into a limp heap unconscious. Maybe dead. Dead silence fell over the scene. The remaining thugs, machetes in hand, turned ashen. They scrambled backward, staring at me as if I were a demon crawling out of hell. Ding. Lin Qingxue is deeply awed and enamored by the host's display of invincible power. Affection rises to 98. Ding. Yi Qingqing feels extreme admiration. Affection rises to 95. Conversion successful. Reward. Martial cultivation advances to Great Grandmaster realm. Obtain top tier movement technique. Phantom shadow step. Boom. The already surging true energy inside me swelled again, flooding my limbs like a tidal wave. I could clearly feel my speed and strength multiply several times over. I turned, smiled, and gently tucked a stray lock of hair behind Lin Qingxue's ear. Don't be afraid. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Lin Qingxue's eyes sparkled, her cheeks flushed, and she leaned into me, whispering, Tianjiao, I'm not afraid. As long as you're with me, I'll go anywhere. Yi Qingqing and the other women gazed at me with blazing fervor. All their earlier anxiety about the exile had vanished. With such a man standing before them, what corner of the world couldn't they conquer? The remaining thugs panicked. One shouted, He's freaky. Everyone together cut him down. A dozen of them charged at me with their machetes, counting on numbers. My eyes went cold. My form blurred into a phantom. Phantom shadow step activate. In the rain, my figure seemed to split into multiple afterimages. The thugs couldn't even touch my coat before they knew it. The crack of breaking bones and screams erupted one after another. In less than 10 seconds, all of them lay in the mud, limbs twisted, howling in agony completely neutralized. I walked over to Zhang Bao, who was slumped on the car hood, and planted my foot on his chest. His ribs groaned under my heel, and blood spurted from his mouth. Go back and tell Hanwei and Su Yin, I said, my tone flat and chilling. Tell them to wash their necks clean. Within 3 months, I will personally take back everything that's mine and send them straight to hell. Now scram. I kicked Zhang Bao into the SUV. The other thugs scrambled to pile in, gunned the engine, and tore off into the downpour as if the devil himself were after them. After dealing with those insects, I turned to face the 8 beauties. The rain stopped, clouds parted, and a sliver of moonlight fell upon us. Lin Qingxue stepped forward, her gaze firm. Tianjiao. This border town is broken, but I still have 30 million yuan in liquid capital, yours to use whenever you need. Yi Qingqing straightened up too. My pharmaceutical group shares are being suppressed by my family. But I still have my ancient medical formulas and my network of healing masters. I can help you build a top-tier medical power. Looking at these women who were willing to give everything for me, a surge of heroic pride filled my chest. Money and power, I will have both. I took Lin Qingxue's and Yi Qingqing's hands and smiled. Since we're here, our first step is to take a base of our own. This remote northwestern town was a lawless zone home to smugglers, fugitives, and underground factions, and the most notorious place here was a ruined border city called Black Crow City. That would be the first cornerstone of Chu Tianjiao's Invincible empire, Black Crow City. After leaving the old station, we chartered a heavy bus and headed straight for Black Crow City, located at the junction of 3 northwestern provinces. It was nominally a dilapidated frontier town, but in reality, it was a no man's land run by the most ruthless criminals from across the region and beyond. When the bus stopped at the city's crumbling gate, dawn was breaking. A few lazy-looking thugs loitered near the entrance, sporting Black Crow tattoos and carrying modified shotguns and machetes. Halt! Who's the fat sheep? The leader, a scar-faced man, squinted at the bus, but when he saw Lin Qingxue, Yi Qingqing, and the other 6 beauties step out, his eyes nearly popped out, and drool practically dripped from his chin. Holy shit! A place like this gets babes this hot, and 8 of them. The scar-faced man wiped his mouth, his eyes gleaming with undisguised lust and greed. Boys, grab your weapons. Kill the guy, we'll split the women among us. A dozen Crow gang brutes howled and surged forward, the smell of gunpowder and blood thickening in the air. I shielded Lin Qingxue and the others behind me and looked calmly at the scar-faced man, who rules Black Crow City. I'm Wild Wolf, 3rd Hall Master of the Crow Gang. He raised his shotgun and pointed it at my head. Kid, you dare act tough here. I am the law. Time to die. Bang. Without hesitation, Wild Wolf pulled the trigger, but what happened next struck every brute there like a lightning bolt, freezing their blood. The buckshot stopped half a foot from my face as if hitting an invisible wall hung in midair, then clattered to the ground. Protective True Chi. Great Grandmaster. Wild Wolf's eyes split wide with terror, his body trembling violently. Crow Gang. Never heard of it. I spoke flatly, and my feet moved. My form flickered like a ghost. My 5 fingers clamped onto Wild Wolf's neck like steel claws, and I lifted his 200-pound frame off the ground with one hand. Crack! No wasted words, a burst of true chi from my palm snapped his cervical spine. Wild Wolf's eyes rolled back, dead on the spot. I tossed him aside like trash. The 3rd Hall Master is dead. He's a demon. Run! The remaining thugs fled in terror, abandoning their guns and scrambling back into the city. I didn't chase them. I simply took Lin Qingxue's and Yi Qingqing's hands and led the 8 beauties step by step into Black Crow City. 10 minutes later, inside the Central Dragon Tiger Hall, Black Dragon, the Crow Gang's boss, was drinking with 2 heavily made-up women on his lap. After hearing his underlings report, he smashed the wooden table in front of him with a thunderous slap. One move snapped Wild Wolf's neck, and he's got 8 stunning women with him. Black Dragon's eyes turned icy, his murderous aura surging. I don't care what dragons swam across the river in my Black Crow City. Dragons crawl and tigers grovel. Summon all 500 brothers. Arm every gun, surround them. Moments later, on the city's crumbling plaza, more than 500 Crow Gang members, armed with all sorts of firearms and melee weapons, formed a ring around me and my 8 companions. Black Dragon, wearing a black leather vest that showed off his bulging muscles, strode out with a heavy machine gun in his hands. Kid, you're the one who killed Wild Wolf. He looked down at me with a sneer. Pretty impressive for your age. I'll give you that. But times have changed. So what if you're a great grandmaster? Can you stop 500 guns and 10,000 bullets? The 8 women paled slightly at the sight of that overwhelming firepower, but they still stood firm around me, not one of them backing away. Ding! Shin Mingshu is deeply captivated by the host's unshakable composure before an army affection rises to 95. Ding! Diva Su Xiangning feels intense love for the host's steadfastness, affection rises to 96. Conversion successful. Reward. Martial Cultivation advances to peak Great Grandmaster. Obtained Divine Grade Defense Armor, Golden Silk Armor. Obtained King Level Command Ability. feeling the volcanic eruption of true chi surging once more within me. I curled my lips into a bloodthirsty smile. 500 guns. To me, just chickens and dogs. I took a step forward and swept my gaze across the crowd. My cold voice echoed through the entire city. Black Dragon, I'll give you one chance. Kneel and submit, the Crow Gang ceases to exist today. Ha ha, arrogant fool. Black Dragon laughed in fury. Then waved his hand. Open fire. Turn him into minced meat. Bang, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. Gunfire thundered like a storm, and bullets poured down on me like a torrential rain. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. I stamped my foot heavily on the ground. Boom! The concrete floor within 10 meters shattered. Countless chunks of stone were swept up by my true chi, forming a massive tornado several meters wide in front of me. All incoming bullets struck the tornado with a metallic clatter, were sucked in, and ground to dust. What? Black Dragon's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. My turn. I snorted and thrust both palms forward. Rumble. That tornado, now filled with bullet fragments and boulders, roared forward like an ancient dragon of destruction. 100 of the Crow Gang members were caught in its path. They didn't even have time to scream before they were flung dozens of meters away, crashing through walls, dead or gravely wounded. One palmed such terror. The remaining hundreds broke completely. Their guns clattered to the ground, and they fell to their knees, begging for mercy. Black Dragon was drenched in cold sweat. His machine gun clanked as it dropped, and he fell to his knees with a thud, trembling. Spare me, I submit. Black Dragon and the entire Crow Gang bow to you as our master. I walked up to him, planted my foot on his shoulder, and looked down coldly. From today on, Black Crow's city is renamed Dragonrise City. I turned, took Lin Qingshue's and Yi Qingqing's hands, and gazed over the city. This would be the starting point of my empire and the graveyard of the Han and Su families. The counterattack. News from our scouts sent chills through the rear courtyard, but the 8 beauties showed no panic, only hatred for Han Wei and Su Yan, Tianjiao. The 3 great provincial families have deep roots in the northwest. These 5,000 private troops are said to be equipped with heavy weapons, even armored vehicles. Lin Qingxue stepped forward, her gaze resolute. I'll immediately contact my business connections in the capital and cut off their supply lines and public support. Yi Qingqing added coldly. I can also mobilize my pharmaceutical group's resources to paralyze the medical supply chains of the 3 families. Seeing these women always thinking of ways to lighten my burden warmed my heart. I placed my hands on their shoulders. No need for all that trouble. I stood tall, my eyes gleaming coldly. 5,000 mere rabble, we waste business tactics on them. Since they want to crush me with brute force, I'll use absolute power to show them what despair really means. I walked out of the Lord's Manor and ascended the high city wall of Dragonrise City. By then, night had fallen, and a heavy rain lashed the earth. Thunder rolled across the sky. At the edge of the distant wilderness, a long line of blinding headlights appeared. The roar of engines mixed with the grinding of tracks filled the air as a massive force converged on Dragonrise City. 5,000 soldiers in black combat gear, armed with automatic weapons, surrounded the city under cover of dozens of armored vehicles. Below the wall, a modified heavy off-road vehicle rolled forward. The door opened, and Han Wei, clad in an expensive trench coat, stepped out surrounded by bodyguards. He held a glass of red wine, a smug, twisted grin on his face. Beside him stood my ex-wife, Su Yan. Su Yan wore a designer evening gown and high heels. Despite the mud underfoot, her arrogance and contempt were undiminished. Chu Tianjiao, Han Wei shouted through a megaphone, his voice grating and triumphant through the rain. You think taking over some broken little town and gathering a few local thugs makes you a match for me? Take a look at yourself. To the great provincial families, you're nothing but a bug I can squash anytime. Su Yan grabbed the megaphone, her voice cold and sharp. Chu Tianjiao, look at you now, hiding in this godforsaken dead city, thinking you can turn things around. I advise you to crawl out right now. Kneel to Han Wei, and hand over those 8 women as compensation, or today will be your grave. Watching that woman who had shared my bed for 3 years, hearing her inhuman words, a last trace of warmth in my heart vanished forever. Su Yan, for 3 years I shielded you from every wind and rain, and raised the Su family from a minor clan to a second-tier power in the capital. Yet you plotted with your lover to ruin me, and now you come with an army to crush me. My voice was soft, but wrapped in true chi. It rolled like thunder over the heads of the 5,000-strong army. Since you're so heartless today, I'll tear down every single pillar you lean on. Ha! Arrogant. Hanwei burst into mad laughter, his eyes vicious. You think a few tricks make you invincible? Open fire. Blast that city wall to rubble. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of armored vehicles swung their turrets around, and dense artillery fire tore through the rainy night, raining shells down on me atop the wall. Inside the wall, the 8 beauties clenched their fists, their eyes filled with unconditional trust and worry. I stood at the parapet, letting the wind and rain lash at me, facing enough firepower to level a small town. I didn't even frown. Where are my snow dragon cavalry? I threw my head back and roared, me voice piercing the heavens. Howl! In the next instant, from the dark depths of the wilderness, came the thunder of 10,000 Haviza, a sound that shook the very earth. An indescribable aura of slaughter and desolation, like a blizzard rising from the abyss, instantly blanketed the battlefield. 3,000 warhorses, clad in dragon-scale heavy armor, burst through the rain. 3,000 invincible knights, faces hidden behind iron masks, wielding dragon-lance spears, charged like an unstoppable steel tide from the flanks of Hanwei's army. Wow, what is that? An army? Where did he get an army? Hanwei's wine glass shattered on the ground, his face twisted in horror. Su Yan turned pale as death, her legs weak, clinging to the car door. Whoever dares harm our Lord Death without mercy. The 3,000 snow dragon cavalry let out a roar so mighty that it shattered the falling raindrops midair. Hooves pounded the earth, spear points tore through the frigid night. In an instant, this divine-grade unit, granted by the system, smashed into Hanwei's 5,000-men heavy-armed formation like a hot knife through butter. Screams tore the night apart. The snow dragon cavalry were like a primordial iron tsunami wherever they passed. The steel armor of armored vehicles was pierced like tofu by their dragon lances, and heavy weapons were reduced to twisted scrap under their sheer might. The 3 families' elite private army, so carefully cultivated, couldn't even mount a proper resistance under the cavalry's charge. They broke, routed, and rivers of blood flowed. No. This is impossible. Impossible. Hanwei trembled, his face ashen, scrambling back into his car. Hold them off. Summon all our enshrined masters. Now. Boom. Several armored buses beside the off-road vehicle exploded, and 4 imposing figures radiating terrifying vital energy leapt into the air and landed in front of Hanwei. These were the 4 grandmasters that the 3 families had spent fortunes to maintain. The leader, an old man with a sinister face, wielded a heavy steel saber and shouted, "Brat! I am Mu Tianhe, Northwest Mad Saber. No matter where you got that freakish army, anyone who dares oppose the 3 great families will die here today." The 4 grandmasters exploded with full power, their chi blasting mud and water into a violent cyclone that swept toward me on the wall. Grandmasters. I looked down at them coldly. To me, they are no more than ants. I slowly raised my right hand. Ding! The 8 beauties, witnessing the host's divine might in battle, reach peak love and adoration, affection maxed out. System conversion at highest multiplayer successful. Reward. Martial cultivation breaks through to peak martial saint half-step land god. Obtained ultimate skill 10,000 Dao Imperial Sword. Kaboom! Thunder in the heavens roared in response. A blazing golden radiance burst from my body that supreme, heaven-crushing imperial pressure exploded outward, and for one moment, every raindrop in the sky hung motionless. Behind me, Lin Qingxue and the other 7 beauties watched that godlike silhouette, their eyes filled with adoration and awe. What realm is this? That's impossible. He's a land god. Mu Tianhai and the other 3 grandmasters felt their arrogance replaced by bottomless terror. They shook violently, barely able to hold their weapons. Borrow the water of heaven, forged 10,000 imperial swords. I spoke softly, forming a sword seal with 2 fingers and sweeping it through the air. Instantly, the tens of thousands of raindrops suspended in the sky, wrapped in golden true essence, condensed into countless sword blades, each one aimed at the 4 grandmasters and the remaining enemy troops below. Fall, with a single point of my finger. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A rain of 1,000 water swords shot down with ear-splitting shrieks, like a heavenly downpour. Thwip, thwip, thwip. Mu Tianhai and the other 3 great grandmasters, famed across the northwest, couldn't even complete their screams. Their protective chi was instantly pierced by countless swords, and they were reduced to clouds of blood mist. The remaining survivors of the private army were annihilated under that devastating sword rain, utterly wiped out, in mere moments. 5,000 heavy troops and 4 clan grandmasters gone. The wind ceased, the rain stopped, and a deathly silence fell over the land. The air was thick with the smell of blood. Only the cold hoofbeats of the snow dragon cavalry remained and the ragged, terrified gasps of Han Wei and Su Yan. Han Wei lay sprawled in the mud, a warm wetness spreading down his trousers. Lost control of his bladder. Su Yan's beauty was utterly ruined by terror. She shook like a leaf in autumn wind, staring up at that white-robed, godlike figure atop the wall. Was this the same Chu Tianjia who had toiled silently in the Su household, enduring her insults and abuse? This was no penniless failure. This was a being who held life and death in his hands, a sovereign of the world. I leaped down, landing as lightly as a feather before Han Wei and Su Yan. I looked down at those 2 deathly pale figures with the calm indifference of one gazing at dead dogs. Su Yan, Han Wei. My voice was cold as frost. It seems your props weren't quite enough.